The world of cinema is packed with notorious, shocking, and deeply disturbing films. Many terrify us in different ways, some through sheer brutal violence like Martyrs, or the more recent Terrifier, others with overwhelming creepiness and oppressive atmosphere, like Begotten or Faces of Death. Some are cult classics many of you have seen, like Requiem for a Dream or A Clockwork Orange. All of these films shock their audiences, and often aim to do just that, deliver raw emotion, confront brutality, and leave you unsettled. But what if one of the most infamous films in this genre, a movie containing extreme violence, the abuse of innocence, psychological manipulation, and an utterly unhinged tone, has been widely misunderstood? More than that, this notorious film, often called the most disgusting thing people have ever watched, is actually a dark comedy, aimed not at entertaining you, but at satirizing the government, its politics, and the very machinery of propaganda in cinema itself. It's also a bitter commentary on post-war Serbia's cultural decay, the exploitation of ordinary people by powerful elites, and the way art can be twisted into a weapon or a shield depending on who controls the narrative. Welcome to Top 2 Day. Today we're talking about A Serbian Film. What is it about? Why was it made? And who brought this shocking vision to life? And most importantly, why it's a lot deeper than it first appears. We'll look at its creation, the director behind the project, walk through the plot, and finally ask the big question: should a film like this even exist? And what does that say about art itself? Before we dive in, grab a snack or make yourself a coffee. You can eat safely. We'll steer clear of showing the most shocking scenes because of YouTube's rules, but I've done my best to cover all the important moments the director deliberately chose to include. So,
okay, let's go.
To truly understand A Serbian Film, we first need to dive into the political and cultural climate of Serbia in the late 1990s and 2000s. At that time, Serbia was emerging from a decade of wars. The bombings of 1999, economic sanctions, and political upheaval had left deep scars. By the mid to late 2000s, while the country was officially moving toward democracy, many citizens felt betrayed. Corruption was rampant. The economy was weak, and the nation's international image was battered. Many Serbs felt disillusioned and angry, not only at their leaders, but also at how Serbia was portrayed abroad, always as either a villain or a helpless victim. The local film industry mirrored this stagnation. It was tightly controlled by the state and heavily dependent on government funding. But that funding mostly went to safe projects, films celebrating traditional family values, or historical dramas where Serbia appeared as a noble victim of foreign aggression. Amid this climate of political fatigue and cultural stagnation stood Srđan Spasojević, a young Serbian filmmaker and producer making his first feature film. Born in 1976 in Belgrade, Spasojević grew up during the turbulent breakup of Yugoslavia, witnessing both the chaos of war and the heavy-handed control of state media. By the time he entered the film industry, he was frustrated with how art in Serbia had been tamed, reduced to propaganda pieces or harmless crowd pleasers. Spasojević believed that cinema should provoke thought, unsettle audiences, and challenge authority, not simply comfort viewers or earn government approval. He openly criticized what he called toothless Serbian cinema, and felt that the constant victim narrative stripped the nation of honest self-reflection. When he set out to create a Serbian film, he deliberately rejected state funding, knowing that a project this controversial would never pass official approval. Instead, he raised roughly $1 million from private backers, giving himself full creative freedom. This independence allowed him to design a film that was, in his words, a mirror held up to a nation in moral collapse. Despite the film's extreme storyline, filled with taboo and shocking content, two of Serbia's recognizable actors agreed to take the lead roles. Beneath the shocking imagery, they understood the film's purpose, a scathing critique of political hypocrisy, censorship, and the exploitation of ordinary people. This combination of anger, political critique, and artistic rebellion is what gave birth to A Serbian Film. It wasn't conceived merely as shock horror. It was designed as a provocation, a darkly comedic protest against hypocrisy in both politics and cinema. Before we move to the plot, I just want to point out that Spasojević himself called it too soft.
The film was soft.
Really?
Now, let's talk about the plot, what this film is actually about, and why so many people call it hard to watch. Miloš is a retired adult film superstar trying to live a quiet life. Long ago, he was a legend, famous across the industry for the size of his working tool. But now, he's at home with his wife, Maria, and their young son. The bills keep piling up, and finding respectable work isn't easy when your only standout skill is highly specialized. Then, one day, Layla, an old colleague, calls with an almost unbelievable offer. A wealthy producer named Vukmir is putting together a high-concept art film, and specifically wants Miloš. Also, in the restaurant scene where Layla offers Miloš the job, Miloš's brother appears. He behaves in a lewd and crude way, which apparently is normal for them, and we also learn that he's a very corrupt police officer. The brother also secretly desires Miloš's wife, Maria, but more on that later. After that, Miloš thinks about the offer. In his own words, he's not missing the industry itself, he's missing the money they used to have. His wife even encourages him to take part in it, so he agrees. In the next scene, we get a closer look at Vukmir. Right away, the film makes it clear what kind of man he is.
Meni je velika čast da stisnem desnu šaku jednog takvog jebača.
Through his shameless, often creepy, and at times even darkly comical dialogue, Vukmir isn't just a character. He represents power itself. In many ways, he's the personification of the system the film is raging against. Polished on the surface, but rotten at the core, exploiting others while justifying it as art or higher purpose. After thinking it over, Miloš agrees, despite never being told exactly what he is going to do. Next, we see how much Miloš's brother is attracted to Maria. Soon after, the real shoot begins, and this is where things take a darker turn. Miloš is fitted with an earpiece, so the director Vukmir can instruct him step by step during the shoot. At first, it looks like just another strange art project, but very quickly the situation spirals. During the process, Miloš is forced to watch as a young girl eats ice cream, though for some reason, he goes along with it for now. After that, there's a scene that reveals Miloš's brother is an even darker individual than we first thought, completely obsessed with Miloš's wife and the entire family. Day 2 of shooting, Miloš takes part again. But this time, the same girl is present, watching everything unfold. Even the bodyguard intervenes, demanding that Miloš beat the actress. For a brief moment, Miloš regains control and refuses. But the director, who appears immediately, tells him, "This is cinema. This is real life." He goes even further, suggesting that Miloš actually enjoyed it, perhaps addressing the audience as well. Later, Miloš talks with his brother, who convinces him to trust Vukmir. But it becomes clear that his brother has his own obsession. Soon after, Miloš begins having nightmares and terrifying visions that feel disturbingly real. When he wakes up, he's not even sure if he ever truly left them behind. Skipping unnecessary scenes, Miloš later speaks directly with the film's director. During their conversation, he insists that he would never agree to such things. Vukmir, however, tries to prove his point by showing Miloš a new recording he has made. On the video, instead of a typical performance, we see something deeply unsettling, a newborn child exposed to disturbing treatment. I am sorry, but we are not going to talk more about this scene. You just don't need it. I believe this moment works as an illusion, a metaphorical image of innocence being corrupted, perhaps meant to criticize how the industry destroys purity for the sake of spectacle. Or maybe it simply reflects the twisted mind of Spasojevic. After Miloš tries to walk away, Vukmir escalates further. It seems that the drink Miloš had earlier was laced with something. The director himself admitted that the drug is meant as a metaphor for propaganda. Miloš attempts to drive away, but unable to fully control himself, he suddenly throws himself onto a girl who was clearly planted there for him. After this, Miloš wakes up at home, covered in blood and racked with unbearable pain. Confused and terrified, he drives back to Vukmir's house. On the way, flashes of the previous night return to him in broken fragments, each one more horrifying than the last. Arriving at the familiar location, the walls themselves trigger his memory. Slowly, the puzzle comes together, and Miloš recalls the unthinkable things he was forced to do. Under the drug's influence, he had been pushed into committing a horrific act, killing an actress, while Vukmir whispered orders directly into his earpiece. Determined to uncover the full truth, Miloš sneaks into Vukmir's private room. There, he discovers a hidden stash of tapes, and with them, the devastating reality of what had truly happened. Even more shocking, the tapes reveal a confrontation. His so-called friend Layla argues with Vukmir. She complains that drugging Miloš was a mistake and says it would have been far more effective to target his son. Vukmir disagrees, insisting that fear cannot be a foundation for art and that he has very different plans for Miloš. Enraged, Layla tells him he is no longer a creator and storms out. But the film doesn't let her go so easily. In the very next scene, Layla meets a brutal end in one of the strangest ways imaginable. She is suffocated with the help of, let's just say, a cucumber. Milos, horrified, wants to leave and reveal everything, but at the last moment he notices yet another recording. On it, we see Milos himself being pressured and manipulated to commit an unspeakable act with the very same young girl he had seen before. And yet, even while drugged, Milos could not go through with it. Instead, he tried to escape. In desperation, he even threatened the one thing Vukmir valued most, his precious manhood, saying he would cut it off unless the filming ended immediately. We will skip ahead again, passing a few scenes that are not crucial to the story. Still under the influence of the drug, Milos wanders the streets, committing various vile deeds without control, until he once again falls back into Vukmir's hands. Inside the car, we get another round of bizarre and creepy dialogue, sometimes even darkly humorous, but again, the specifics are too filthy to linger on. Vukmir tells Milos there is one final task, and then he will be free. He drives him to the set and orders his assistant to give Milos another dose. She injects him, but in a sudden burst of resistance, Milos manages to stab her with the syringe as well. Despite this, the drug quickly takes hold. In a nightmarish frenzy, Milos is forced into a vile act with two masked participants, while another figure joins in. And here the masks come off. One of them is revealed to be his own brother, while the other is, shockingly, his son. Milos realizes the unthinkable. Everything has been orchestrated to reach this breaking point, with his brother finally achieving what he had desired all along. Driven insane with rage and despair, Milos turns on the director. He lunges at Vukmir, biting and killing him in a feral outburst, while at the same moment, his wife strikes down Milos's brother. A chaotic gunfight erupts, ending with yet another grotesque death by cucumber, this time in the eye. And when the dust settles, only Milos and his family remain alive in this hellish nightmare. As Vukmir dies, he screams over and over again, "This is real cinema. This is the real film." A final, twisted declaration. The meaning is clear. For him, true art comes only from breaking every human boundary, turning suffering, exploitation, and degradation into what he calls authentic experience. It is both a grotesque manifesto and a brutal satire of an industry that destroys humanity in the name of entertainment. At the same time, his words can be seen as a sharp commentary on power and post-war Serbian cinema. Vukmir embodies both the extreme filmmaker and, metaphorically, the state itself, exaggerating human suffering and moral corruption to expose how authority manipulates art, turning creators and audiences alike into instruments of propaganda. His scream of real cinema is thus not only madness, but a hyperbolic mirror of how war, politics, and ideology shape culture, making the grotesque a deliberate reflection on control and exploitation. In the final scene of this soft family film, we see the broken family making what they believe is their only remaining choice. Morning comes, and new directors enter the empty room, unfazed by the chaos left behind. They glance around, assess the set, and the new lead director calmly says, "Let's start from the small one," proving that in this universe, exploitation doesn't stop at death. It simply becomes more footage to sell. And that's the brutal gut punch of a note the film leaves you on. If you went in without knowing the political context, you're probably sitting there wide-eyed, caught somewhere between shock, anger, disgust, and pure "what did I just watch?" A Serbian Film isn't just another disturbing horror. It's a furious scream against hypocrisy, censorship, and manipulation. He weaponizes shock to force a conversation that polite society prefers to avoid. Love, family, and even national pride, all of them become tools for exploitation when power decides they're convenient. The film's aftermath was explosive. It premiered in 2010 at the South by Southwest Film Festival and quickly became infamous. Many countries banned or heavily censored it. Festivals debated whether even showing it was irresponsible or necessary for artistic freedom. Its box office earnings were modest. This was never a commercial crowd pleaser, but its notoriety turned it into a cult object among extreme cinema fans. For some, it's a daring political statement. For others, it's unforgivable exploitation masquerading as art. So, let's answer the main question. Should films like this even exist? Cinema has always had the power to provoke, to challenge, and to expose, sometimes in beautiful ways, and sometimes in the ugliest ways imaginable. What makes this film terrifying is not just its imagery, but the allegories hiding beneath it, about power, politics, propaganda, and the way art itself can be corrupted. Martin Scorsese once said, "Cinema is a matter of what's in the frame and what's out." In A Serbian Film, what's in the frame is pure horror, but what's out of the frame is even darker. The reality of a country's wounds, the manipulation of artists, and the abuse of innocence by those in control. Ingmar Bergman once wrote, "No art passes our conscience in the way film does, and goes directly to our feelings, deep down into the dark rooms of our souls." That's exactly why a movie like this shakes us so violently, because it's not just showing cruelty, it's touching nerves we don't want to admit exist. So, should it exist? My answer is yes. A grotesque allegory, a piece of cinema that forces us to confront the very question of where art ends and exploitation begins. You don't have to watch it. You don't have to like it. But banning such films would mean silencing voices, even the most uncomfortable ones. Because sometimes, cinema isn't about comfort. Sometimes it's about staring into the abyss and realizing that what we see there is not just fiction, but a reflection of ourselves, our society, and the darkest truths we'd rather ignore. But what about you? Do we need movies like this to push boundaries and ignite debate? Or should there be a hard line art should never cross? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd genuinely love to hear your perspective. If you've stayed with me this long, you're a legend. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss more deep dives into cinema's most daring corners. That was Top 2 Day. See you in the next one.
Now I could say that the film was soft, so maybe the humankind deserve worse. So.